It's all about automation. This is Gary Mintchell, Editor-in-Chief, Automation World Magazine, and here with another videocast podcast. This is being recorded November 20th, 2010. I'm in the business carols at the Newark International Airport on my way to Germany for the SPS Drive show. Spend a couple of days in Nuremberg and hopefully pick up a lot of stuff. I hear there's some cool new products and some major announcements coming up over there. So watch for my blog and for Automation World for news coming out of SPS Drives this coming week. This week on my mind has to do a lot with teamwork and leadership, and there's different reasons for that. And a lot of these thoughts will come out in the December issue of Automation World, which you'll see online in about 2 weeks. Somewhere during the first 7-8 days of December, or of the month, that issue goes online. So I expect to see stuff up shortly. However, as you know, if you follow these occasional podcasts and videocasts, I've been doing a lot of traveling from the end of September all the way through October through the 1st of November, and a lot of that had to do with user groups where I interviewed the senior management teams of a number of companies. And in fact, this last week I didn't go to a users group. I went out to something totally different. I went to a sales meeting, and it was actually a meeting at Omron Electronics Industrial Automation Group. As they like to say, they're not the people that make the blood pressure monitors you see at Kroger or other stores like that. But this is the industrial automation, and they've been really quiet for a while. And a good company. I used to know a lot of people there. A lot of those people have left. There's a new team in place, and they have been working really hard, kind of on the basics, what we like to call blocking and tackling, getting their distributors channel back up and going the right way, and getting sales in place and sales force and management and so on. And they say they've been doing very well. In fact, they say sales for the last 12 months are very good, and they're very happy, and that means their owners back in Japan are happy. So in addition to that, I, of course, was at the Emerson Exchange and talked to Emerson people, and I talked to Invensys people, and following that was Rockwell Automation. And in the meantime, I happened upon a blog by a guy by the name of Michael Hyatt, who's CEO of Thomas Nelson Publishing. And he writes a good blog on leadership and other things, and offered a book. He told about a new book that was out that he really liked. It's by somebody named Richard L. Daft. He's a professor at, I believe, Vanderbilt in Nashville, and he teaches in the MBA program. And he's written a book called The Executive and the Elephant. And so while I was thinking about leadership and teamwork, and a lot of this had to do with looking at Emerson's team, and then I had an interview with John Barra upon his retirement, and we reflected on a lot of the things he's done, and he was the driving force building, starting with Fisher Rosemount and building Emerson Process Management, and I asked him how he did that, and we talked about building teams, and talked to the team at Emerson Process right now. When we were a couple of years, actually less than 18 months ago, in the formative stages of Invensys Operations Management, as Sudipta Bhattacharya was brought on board to kind of bring things together, right the ship, get things moving the right way with Invensys, or that part of Invensys, and emerged Invensys Process Systems with Wonderware, with Eurotherm, trying to forge something. And I asked him about building a team, and he had his initial focus was, how do I build the senior management team? How do we build the teams underneath that for products and marketing and service, excuse me, and all that kind of stuff. And so there was a lot of teamwork, a lot of leadership involved. And the same way with Rockwell. When I talked to Rockwell's senior management team, and they're very cohesive. They're talking the same kind of language. Going right the same direction, all these kind of things. A long time ago, I read a book about a dysfunctional team, and it's always stuck with me. It was in the very late 70s or early 80s I read this book, and it was called Power Play by Mary Cunningham, about her experiences when Bill Agee, who eventually became her husband, was trying to build a conglomerate out of Bendix, and it all collapsed in just a big house of cards. And if you read the book, she doesn't seem to understand it, even with her Harvard MBA. But if you read the book, what you saw right away was they had a dysfunctional team. AG comes in as CEO. All the senior vice presidents are fighting each other. None of them like AG, and yet he embarks on some grand plan because he's a strategic thinker. And if you read it, you go, holy smoke, this was bound to fail because they didn't put a good team together. They were fighting each other instead of like going out after the enemy. So I've always been interested in that fact. So as I'm reading all this, and that's kind of what I see. I see Omron put a new team together, and these other teams are functional. John Barra talks about how he assembled teams and multi-teams in acquisitions. How do you bring somebody in when you've acquired somebody? And this is just a theme over the last 2 months, just everywhere I go. So back to the executive and the elephant. To have to ask the question, why do so many CEOs not do what they intend to do? They go in with big plans and optimism, and they plan to do this, plan to do that, and it just doesn't work. And he cites a study where a huge percentage of failed CEOs they get certain things right, and yet they just can't execute. And he takes a step back and says, okay, let's look individually, because it all falls back on you. And where that comes from is he identifies two drives within you. One is the inner executive, and so that's the rational part of your being, where you think and say, I'm going to do this, and you do task lists, and you do all that sort of stuff. And then the inner elephant are your emotions and drives and that sort of thing that actually stop you from doing that. They react too quickly. They overreact. They underreact. You'll say things to people that you shouldn't say. You push people away that you should be bringing in. You get all hyper and worked up instead of being more calm and analytical as you approach things. You don't build teams, you drive teams away. That's the inner elephant. And the whole book has to do with how do you control that inner elephant. And it's like a quote from Benjamin Franklin, if passions be the horses that are driving, let reason be the reins guiding them. And that's kind of the idea that he has. So that's a leadership tip, and that's what sometimes it takes a little passion. Sometimes you have to yell at people. You learn that as a soccer referee. Most of the times you want to calm people down, but sometimes you just have to yell at them and make sure that they know you're not happy with their actions. And sometimes as a manager or a leader, you have to do the same thing. I'm not happy with your actions. How can we act in a better way? So that's what I've been thinking about this week. Actually, last 8 weeks, to be honest, and read more about all those things in the December issue of Automation World. And today, while I'm sitting here in my little cube at the President's Club, I'm looking into sustainability. And so it'd be interesting if anybody has any ideas on sustainability. I'm building an issue for a future edition of Automation World, and I'm looking at different aspects of sustainable manufacturing and what does that mean. I'm running across standards. Some ISO 14040, for example, came up. Life cycle, product life cycle, manufacturing life cycle management kinds of ideas. Energy savings is huge. And material savings. Some people relate it to OEE. If I have better OEE, I'm more efficient. If I'm more efficient, I have less waste. Less waste goes back to lean, which is another issue. And so many things are intertwined. And if you have any ideas on sustainability, I'd be interested. And if you happen to be implementing a sustainable packaging line, I'd be interested if you wanted to speak at our Packaging Automation Forum, because that's coming up in the end of April, and I'm trying to put together a panel to talk about sustainable packaging machinery and packaging lines. So if you have any interest or knowledge along that line and you think you might want to speak, Gary Mintchell, gmintchell@automationworld.com, and let's chat about it. So at any rate, this is November 20. I'm at the Newark Airport President's Club, getting ready to go to Germany very shortly. And I'll have future reports coming from Nuremberg and the SPS drives. But today's thoughts were on leadership and team building. And until then, this is Gary Mintchell. Have a good day.